Hey, everybody, welcome back to the John Hallett podcast. Today, we are talking about a 360-degree approach to your self defense. And that big aspect of the 360-degree approach would be first aid and trauma response. Of course, I want to put this important disclaimer out there, right? I am not a medical professional whatsoever. I highly recommend you guys take a class. This is just meant to get you maybe more excited about it, or just some daily steps that you can take to keep yourself a little bit safer. God forbid that, you are shot, you are stabbed, but probably more likely you get a little boo-boo, you sprain your ankle, concussions happen a lot more in sparring classes, that type of stuff. People fall down on ice. Somebody might be having a stroke, something of that effect. Those things are more likely, but being prepared with just a simple, easy, what to carry daily. Sometimes people go, why do you have a tourniquet? Well, if you need that tourniquet, you're going to need it right then and there. And, sometimes even I feel my car is too far away to have that tourniquet. So you need it just like self-defense. And we'll bring in Josh because he was cracking up all day yesterday about some video I did. What the heck was I saying, Josh?
You're gonna need it. You don't even know when you're gonna need it, but you're gonna need it. It's so great. It was a fun edit in the video, but he's right though. I mean, when you're gonna need it, you're gonna need it. So keep it on, whatever you can.
Yeah, having some basic first aid is really important to really get that 360-degree approach. I stopped the bleed. Coach Bill is super busy. Thought about bringing him on here, but he's super busy. We'll probably have him do a stop the bleed course. We've done them before here at Rocky Mountain Self Defense and Fitness in Castle Rock. And speaking of that, if you're in the Douglas County area, we've got that free trial back to school. Get your kids involved in something, having trouble finding a sport for them. Come in, check it out. It is a great program. We've got that 1 month free at rmsdf.com. So check it out. We really try to have that 360-degree approach because, medical and what to do right after is just extremely important. That's, something I think about and go, want to think about it more in my training, at least a conscious, assess, but hey, what am I doing? Where is that tourniquet? What is happening right now? So that's tough. What do you think, Josh?
Oh, I think that everybody buys one of those IFACs, which is like an individual first aid kit, right? They carry it around on their bag and they've never opened it. They've never played with the stuff inside of it, and they don't know how to use 99% of what's in a kit. So we bring you this information because if you bought one, you got to know how to use it. So you should buy two, figure out how to use the one, find somebody to train you to use it. That's the important thing, right? Find somebody to train you. But understand what you're carrying with you, right? And then as we're moving on in this podcast, I'm sure we're going to talk about like some of the things that you could pull a couple of those out and say, learn how to use this one, right? Or just learn signs and there's just so much, man. But learn how to use it. That's the big moral of the story.
Yeah, it is. Using anything, just having it and not knowing how to use it or practicing with it, practice putting on a tourniquet. That's, an important step, so you're not panicking, is huge. But before I forget again, if you're in the Castle Rock and Douglas County area, if you're interested in doing a Stop the Bleed course, there's tons of ways to contact us. You're a member, you can reach out to us on band or rmsdf.com, any contact form. Fill that in if you've got an interest, a date, a time, throw that in there. We've been talking about it and we've got like everything else, things get busy, and I think this podcast is a good reminder about, just basic first aid, trauma response, what to do. Cause just, not panicking and letting somebody bleed out, just basic compression, it's something, a t-shirt in that wound, just something is better than nothing, because that is a huge thing, just the loss of blood.
So,
But number one is that scene safe,
yeah.
right? We see people not assessing just after a regular self-defense scenario. They're not looking around, they're not checking out what's going on, because if you get attacked again, that attacker is still present and they attack you. This is
Yeah.
something that's going to be very concerning. You're trying to render first aid and you're now getting attacked from behind. You got to make sure you're safe. But that's, again, like so many things, it's tough, right? Because you want to help that person, because they're injured in whatever manner, but now you're attacked, now you're injured. So, that's a tough thing to do. We see that every day in the gym, like just lack of awareness after the fact. Just that second, guys, just take a second or two and go, okay, the scene is okay. Now what? Call for help.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Get 911 on the line here in the United States as soon as possible, right? Get them on the way. I mean, that is the one thing. If you're, in a place like Castle Rock, I always say you're not out in the middle of nowhere. They're going to be relatively quick to where you're at,
Yeah.
and even these days, a helicopter coming your way, the med flights. I mean, there's so many things. If you just start the ball rolling, that is going to help get them on the way, right? Just get the professionals on the way as soon as possible. And, even if you are a professional, get yourself, you're an EMT, get more help coming, because you probably don't have everything there, where that person's going to need, a doctor in the ER, they might need a transfusion, all of that type of stuff.
Yeah. You got to learn how to stop that bleed. I had a friend who was in like an off-road accident many years ago. And if it wasn't for the fast thinking of a bunch of Boy Scouts in the area, he would have died. And the first thing they did is they tourniqueted him. And those Boy Scouts were incredible. They saved his life. And then they got him a helicopter. Like, they made the phone call. So learn how to stop that bleed. I mean, it's the difference between life or death. Most injuries you're going to survive through if you don't realize it, right? The bleeding, though, woo, that's the one that gets
Yeah, that's huge, right? The
yeah.
March protocol,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
M is for massive hemorrhage. That is the number one priority. A person can bleed to death in just a few minutes. Your goal is to stop that bleeding, right? Like I said a couple minutes ago, direct pressure, the most basic and often most effective method. Use a clean cloth, your hands. If you've got that first aid trauma kit, have, right, tons of stuff, right? Have your gauze. We said, and sorry, we're going to bring Josh off, but just having, I wasn't ready for it, just basic gauze, to be able to pack that wound in that med kit is just so huge. I've got multiple med kits. I've got one in the Jeep. I've got this one here that is just a really just go sling bag. I've got one in my day-to-day pack. Did I already say I have another one behind my seat?
Yeah, I think there might even be one near the desk. There's one on my backpack.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a giant one.
Oh, yeah.
Right behind our workstation, right on the Krav Maga floor. We've got a giant med kit right there. And we're not talking about, the little boo-boo kit that's underneath it that, people are using way more often than, your giant trauma bag. So, any of that stuff. So where was I? Wound packing, direct pressure, wound packing, learning to do that, practicing packing a wound. When, so the knife has gone in, it's not just a, cool little boo-boo, a tourniquet, you've got massive bleeding from that arm, right? That limb, just blood just squirting out. You've got to get that tourniquet on there as soon as you can, and practicing that, is huge. And having that, and I have a backup. I got this from Coach Bill, who teaches a class, the soft T tourniquet, I believe is what these are called. This is really comfortable to carry in your pocket. I carry that with some duct tape, and a couple Ziploc bags in there, because you can use those for chest wound, that sucking chest wound.
Chest wound, yeah.
Just something basic, and just like your firearm, it's got to be comfortable to carry around. And this setup that's usually in a plastic bag that I took it out of so you can get a better visual, is comfortable to carry around. That's right on my person. A lot of people, and I've tried, carrying a tourniquet, and it's just uncomfortable. It's just another thing on there. I have that trauma bag, or my first aid kit, generally, within, a room or so away, within that house, I kind of generally say is where I'm at. Where are you keeping yours?
Oh, I've got it on a backpack. I've got one in my car. I've got one in the kitchen. I left one in the kitchen just because I have a fire extinguisher. I've got a tourniquet, all the things that might pop up in the kitchen. I've got one in the wife's car. I've got one in her bag. I've got one in my safe. I put one in there just because, that's where I'm manipulating firearms. If anything was to go wrong, I don't want to be searching through the room. And I put them in conspicuous places. That way I know where they're at. That's the other thing, is don't hide them somewhere so you can't find it in that moment. And then I also want to stress what you're saying about comfort. If it's not comfortable for it to be on your person, you're not going to carry it. You're not going to put it in your pocket. So find the things that you can carry with you that are comfortable, that don't make you look like you have to have cargo pants, right, in order to carry it. In the winter, that might be okay. In a pair of shorts, those soft tourniquets are worth their weight in gold because they just sit right in your pocket.
Yeah,
so I keep one everywhere.
That's where, I hardly ever wear shorts unless I'm at a pool or, on the Platte River tubing. I was there, but I had, I had my first aid with me because the last time I went, I didn't have it, because having something tubing is kind of difficult in there, and things get, potentially getting wet. But, sometimes there's just old, whatever, metal stuff on the side. Somebody gashes an arm or a leg right there, that's pretty tough. So I had it with me the last time, but it's always when I don't have a firearm, a knife, or first aid, that I'm like, oh, this is when I'm gonna need it, but it's a tough carry. That's where I wear a type of brand of pants. You're like, don't even say it. I'm like, I really doubt 511 is going to ever sponsor this show, but I wear.
What's wrong with 511s? I love 511s.
Because they don't look like bulky cargo pants, and you can put some stuff in the pockets. Even the side pockets have organization where the SWAT T tourniquet is next to my keys. They're not bumbling around. They're within the side pockets have I think it's 3 like in your side pocket. It has 3 pockets within the one big pocket, so you can kind of separate things there. It's where my
tourniquet in my
the
pocket.
other side is my just a daily utility knife from Milwaukee that I carry, that is deep inside that pocket, but it's not moving around. It's got its own, it's flashlight, on one side. I've got my little Milwaukee and screwdriver, right? Great. Little combo there in one pocket, and that's not dangling around. It's not floating around. It's, in its own pocket next to a flashlight that, is in there, and they're kind of hard to pick up.
Wish I brought my backpack and had it in front of me. You're pulling out all the fun toys, and I'm just like, yeah, I've got that. I carry a Leatherman just because I love having the pliers in the end, but it gets kind of heavy to carry a Leatherman.
Yeah, it's one thing I moved to my bag. I carried a Leatherman for years instead of the Milwaukee or in there.
Yeah. I find that tool pretty useful that you carry.
I love it, but I just put it in my backpack. That it's with me every day. It might take me an extra second, but it's usually not an emergency that you need that Leatherman super quick.
Yeah. Big things in pockets.
Where did I leave off on that? We were talking.
You were going to your kit.
Yeah, I mean, your tourniquet. Just 101. You want to apply that tourniquet. High and tight on the limb, 2 to 3 inches above the wound. Right, tighten it until the bleeding stops, and that's always a consideration with a smaller child. I could use my flashlight, I could use my utility knife to, take up the slack if there's not enough slack on that tourniquet, because they're so little. They're little
Yeah.
scrawny arms, or or guys that don't work out.
Yeah.
You got scrawny chicken arms. You might need something else to make up that space in that tourniquet. So
even your teenage kids or your young daughter, suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, your arm's only like 2 inches around. And a normal tourniquet doesn't work. And then the panic sets in. You've got to not only carry that stuff, work it on you, work it on the kids.
Yeah. And by all means, do not remove it or loosen it. Losing the limb is a secondary.
Yeah.
The immediate risk is bleeding to death, and, really a lot of the research saying like, it's going to take a lot longer, keep it on there. It's saving so many lives in the, in combat zones, just because of the tourniquet.
They save limbs all the time. They reattach limbs. Okay. So just putting that in perspective, right? They can put it back on and you're going to be fine with the tourniquet. Keep it tight.
Yeah. Next is airway, right? In that March protocol, if the person is unconscious and not breathing, you need to ensure that their airway is open. R is for respiration, check for breathing. If there's a penetrating chest wound, often called a sucking chest wound, right? We just talked about that with even just a simple plastic bag, never mind having, the full trauma kit that we can have, scissors, everything in that trauma kit is just huge. C is for circulation, right? You want to control the bleeding and check for signs of shock. Pale, cool, sweaty skin and a rapid heart rate. And H is for hypothermia. Prevent heat loss, keep them warm. Blankets, jackets, I have, just a basic, first aid blanket in my first aid kit that you can put over somebody, to prevent hypothermia.
Fantastic.
Any of those you want to touch on besides, take a class is our big call here. That's huge. The thing to remember too, also, with gunshot wounds, it can be, an entry and an exit wound. So a lot of times, turning that person over and really checking them, is there something you need to address on both sides? People often with a stab, if that knife is still in there, that object, they fell got stabbed by a tree branch or something, leave it in there, stabilize it as best you can, try to control the bleeding as best you can, but do not pull that out. It's tough, and that can happen. With a stab, I go back to I think one of the first white-tailed deers I shot alone in the woods as a teenager. I stabbed it with my buck knife to try to kill it. I thought, I don't know what I was thinking as a young boy, but the knife didn't come out, and of course the deer's not dead and it's struggling, and I feel bad. You want to end its life as quickly as you can, but the buck knife is stuck in the ribs, and you can't get it out. So that can happen to somebody that attacks you and they stab you, and the body creates a vacuum and they can't pull it out. Those things can happen in there. So don't attempt to pull it out. Leave it there. Get a medical treatment. Get to an ER so they can stop that. It's kind of when somebody gets run over by a subway car or something like that, and that person's able to talk, communicate, maybe get a message out to family, but as soon as they remove that heavy object from them, they're basically done, right? They're bleeding out. So I'm sure people have seen that type of scenario in a movie of some sort, and that's the facts. So
puncture wounds are tricky. Keep it in if you can.
If it's in there. leave it in there.
Yeah.
You're going to cause more damage potentially, or like tear more, make it worse.
Yeah.
And you don't have the means to really deal with that. If you can leave it in, you're making it, quote, easier for the EMTs when they get there.
Yeah.
So,
Some people's maybe so deep into shock, they don't even realize they've got a piece of rebar going through their body, right? They're like, yeah, something fell and I don't know what it was. This is uncomfortable, but people don't know that they're hurt. Sometimes you got to
yeah.
be real careful and keep things calm and cool if that's the case. And remember the rule is dial 911. Like get the pros. Get the pros.
Yeah. So, you're more likely, minor cuts and sprains, having that, I've got a little boo-boo kit, just in there. You just got some of your basic, different size Band-Aids in there. I carry just a basic suture kit, to zip things up in there from just, a bad scrape, being in construction for years, you tear your hand. It's nothing deep, but, it's a pretty good cut that might need stitches, if you can seal that up because you're in the woods, some of this modern trauma stuff is just fantastic. I guess maybe like, I don't know, it's like 2 of those in there, and they've got the whole little kit in there, towelette,
Yeah.
do it. We
When I was
had you get super, and like me picking stuff up in the parking lot occasionally, right? Narcan,
keep it in the bag. That one's huge right now to keep near you.
Especially these days. We see what was that, was it the West Point kids that were trying to save the other kid, and he had fentanyl on them, and they all ended up dying, or 2 of them, or whatever it was. I can't remember the whole story there, but just a little bit is huge. So I have that trauma kit as well, the Israeli bandage, to get it to stop bleeding. Those are all things you can get in there and carry in your kit. But head injuries, we wanted to talk about that, right? That's a much more likely, slip and fall, you're sparring, and somebody gets a concussion. Those are more common than, I've had way more of those than I've had to deal with, I don't think I've had to deal with, a gunshot wound ever, maybe guns going off in the city, and I don't know, but that concussion, that happens all the time in sport, all the time. It happens fairly frequently in the gym setting, right? That somebody got, a little carried away, most likely, and somebody didn't have their hands up, didn't see it coming, and they're out. So,
if I could just quickly, even if you've got kids in sports, being able to watch your own kid when you think they might have a head injury is super important. Soccer actually has more head injuries than football because they head the ball.
Yeah.
And I tried to head a ball once and never did it again. That was it for me with soccer. I was like, this is a no. Like, I'd rather take my chances with football. At least I was in control of my head for the most part.
Yeah. So number one, the immediate response, when in doubt, sit them out. Like, hey, sometimes you get people that want to get back into it, and you're going, I mean, we had a guy, probably one of the worst ones. I mean, his nose was crushed from a knee strike, and he wanted to go back to work. Not going back to work.
I'm fine.
And we had to bring him in, like, no, you're not going back to work. Like, let's go in and take a look in the mirror. And like, we need to get you to the ER. On top of that, he, I'm sure, there was a concussion there, but he also had, the injury to the nose that was crushed from, and it was, we've told the story on the show before. It was a really incidental knee strike. It was more of his face going for a takedown at a way higher rate than the knee was coming in. So, but we want to stop training. We want to sit you out. I mean, gosh, if any head, impact, they might whiplash, anything. Just it's best. It's the head. It's the brain. It's constantly what We talk about keep your hands up, protect your brains, like, I think I joke with the kids Krav Maga class, like, you don't have a screensaver, so you're not going to replace this thing. Keep your hands up,
all the time.
Again, you're out, no exceptions, like, especially the tough people. Nope, you're out. You took a shot. When in doubt, sit them out. It's not worth it.
It's okay to take them out. It's okay.
You go like, no, I'm good. I'm fine. Like, sit them out.
Sit down, dude. Yeah.
Don't leave the person alone. You've got physical signs. Headache, pressure in the head,
dizziness.
Nausea, vomiting.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that one's the worst too.
Sensitivity to light. That's why I feel like every day that you have a concussion, because you're like, the light is so bright coming in the window.
What's going on? Right? I got this headache I just can't get rid of. I don't have a hangover. I can't figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Vision changes, ringing in the ear, kind of round out physical signs, cognitive and emotional signs, they're confused, slurred speech, delayed response to questions. Again, that's probably why my wife thinks I have a concussion all the time, because I'm very delayed in answering questions.
No, you're just thoughtful.
Can't recall what happened.
All right, that's just when you
go irritability, unusual behavior, or
all right, you're pretty irritable. Yeah, I'll give you that one.
So again, this is why your wife thinks she has a concussion. Oh no.
You got a concussion? No, I'm just mad.
I think I'm dying. So you can see where some of these things overlap, but you got to tie the pieces together where, sometimes people are irritable, but that can be a sign of, they've got something wrong. They've got a concussion. Get them checked out after seeing them take a hit. Your big red flags. Let's see if any of these come up. Loss of consciousness. No, Josh doesn't do that daily. Seizures or convulsions. Nope. Repeated vomiting. Sometimes I think you throw up in your mouth when I yell at you.
Yeah, if I've had breakfast before.
Worsening headache. See, this could be you right there, but
yeah, I get migraines anyway. I'll just stand there and be like, "Oh God, here it comes."
My headache is getting worse throughout the day, John. Dealing with you.
Right. I've gotten used to it.
Cannot stay awake. You're drowsy. That can also mean you're just old and need a nap. But you just took a head injury, right? Checking out the pupils. Abnormal eye movement. Any leaking clear fluid from the ear or nose. You want to get them to
that's a problem.
The emergency room, or get 911 coming as soon as possible.
God, I don't want to have a brain leak.
Oh, what was that? I think your mic might be low or something.
I don't want a brain leak.
Yeah.
That sounds horrible. Sorry, and I was just mumbling if the microphone doesn't pick up. But yeah, that'd be weird to have fluid start coming out of your ear and nose. It's like, yeah, let's dial 911 on that. Let's just sit them down. Ugh.
Yeah, monitor and refer. If the symptoms are mild but present, refer to a medical professional ASAP. Don't take chances. Don't allow somebody to return to training the same day. Keep a close eye 24 to 48 hours. If it's a kid, you got to let the parents know, hey, they headed the ball. They seem fine. Their speech is fine.
I'd rather err on the side of caution.
Don't err on the side of caution. Let those parents know that they took a hit. And then you should probably rest for 24 to 72 hours, depending on how bad those symptoms were. I think the worst concussion I had, it could have been, I don't know how long. Let's see. Left the old Aurora gym not pretty quickly after, and I threw up on I-25 south of Castle Rock. Aurora. Yep, I'm like, I've got a concussion in there. So, these symptoms don't have to be like, oh, you got hit in the head and you're throwing up immediately, or there's clear liquid coming out of your ears. So depending on how severe those symptoms are, I would, err on taking a week off sometimes, and then just light, easy, movement back, not trying to do like, let me do Murph, let me do a like super hard workout, or
let's put on the
our bench
gloves.
for, our endure workout that is this month, that a lot of people try to avoid because it's just a long grind. It's, most people are around 40 minutes to do the workout. Let's not start with that one. Come back nice and easy. And no heavy contact training, obviously. You don't want to get back into sparring anytime soon. You don't want to be even just practicing takedowns, where the head's getting jarred around potentially. Full contact. I would get cleared by my medical professional that you're good. You don't want to get a secondary impact syndrome, right? Get like rushing it back and getting hit again. Protect the brain. That is just huge. So I think that kind of rounds up, what I wanted to talk about and our, little 101 kind of thing here. And I don't know if you've got anything, but we'll just throw that reminder out there that, hey, we are not medical professionals. It's just some 101 basic everyday civilian things, Call 911, take a course. If you'd like to take a course, you've got an interest in taking a course, let us know. We've been talking about getting one on the calendar, but the months slip away. And, I'm guilty of, what I say all the time. You're going to make the time, and it can easily slip away. So I think it's something maybe we should throw on the calendar quarterly or something. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
More the better. I mean, if we get people in, we're here for self-defense, and you have to be able to defend yourself from dying. So you got to take all the stuff that goes beyond the fight, right? Because we're all encompassing here. We just don't stop at the end of the fight. You've got stuff to do afterwards, right? And that's where we train you. So get in rmsdf.com.
Yeah. So you can support the podcast. We did a couple of fun little logos here. Let's see if I can get them on there. The new fight or flight penguin, just a fun logo, just kind of fun. Nothing that's like changing our RMSDF or Clear Sky logo, but you can support the podcast. They're all on shop.rmsdf.
Sure.
I'm hesitant right now. It'd be great if it's just a fight or flight and doesn't have the RMSDF branding on there. And we got, I think this one, I mean, I love the tough penguin, but we also did our little kid version in there.
I bet you I'll buy that one. Like, I just love the cute factor.
You just love the cute factor. Yeah.
I love the cute factor.
Anything that you can be cuter, Josh, that would be really good.
I'm not that cute. I just come across.
That is what I'm saying. That is what I'm saying.
This is too much. If I want abuse, I'll go to work.
He might be cuter. I get the little animation I did with him on the gym TV is funny. Is our little Project Fit penguin. He's got his little dumbbell. He throws it down in the animation on the gym TV.
I love it.
With info on there, and she's like, "I'm done with this workout. I don't want to work out anymore." So you can support the podcast there. Suckless.co for supplements. We've got a ton of great stuff on there. That banner is at the bottom, but suckless.co is a great way to support the podcast. You can start a subscription, get your BCAAs, get your protein, and a ton of other supplements on there. Your creatine, that's a super popular one these days, and the benefits of creatine. So, and that's been long researched, is what I really like about that one. So check it out, guys. You got any closing notes, Josh?
Yeah, come in, train, go to our website, fill out that waiver, and come in now.
Yeah. What do we had a couple other ideas coming up there. Bill's idea and what he was talking about, reacting versus responding. I had one too, the 10 toughest sports, in my opinion. That's another fun one, along with dumb things people say.
That's great.
We had something else popping up there. I don't know if you think anything on the top of your head. I know we were talking.
Bring it on. That's what I was thinking. Like the dumbest things I could say. Bring it on. Okay, buddy. Let's just calm down.
Don't say dumb things. Yeah.
Don't
even
say
just
dumb
those
things.
subtle those subtle things of challenging somebody. I think I said in the
Yeah.
other class, like somebody looks like, you got an abusive husband or boyfriend, and, you're trying to get that woman away, that is challenging that guy. I think I told the class, you might as well just say, hey, you come over here. I'm your new daddy now. I'm like, people are like, what? Like, to that guy, that's what that sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like, hey, come over here, why don't you're like, let me help you.
It just challenges the relationship to that woman.
Yeah, you just challenge that guy, so you might as well just be saying something absurd.
Right.
But people don't realize that. So it's all those things are so tough. There's so much to do in a 360-degree approach to your self-defense. So hotel security, the path to black belt. So if you've got a big interest, this medical podcast was a request from one of our students and listeners. So thanks a lot for motivating us there. We will see you guys next time. Have a great day.